Good evening and welcome back. I'm Britt Hume, and this is On the Record, on a night when the national polling average continues to show a 2-point lead or less for Hillary Clinton. Changes in the battleground states point to an easier, though still difficult, path for Donald Trump. The Real Clear average of national polls showed Mrs. Clinton with a 1.3 lead in a two-way race and a 2-point lead in a four-way. Amid reports that betting money is moving to Donald Trump, the odds against him have shrunk to just under 70-30. That's well below what they were just a short time ago. For more now on the state polls and the changes in the Fox News electoral map, we turn to correspondent Shannon Bream.
5 days to go, and the electoral map is shifting again. And all four of the major changes we're seeing this time work in favor of the Trump campaign. New Hampshire, which has leaned consistently Democrat, is now moving into the toss-up column. Ohio, a major electoral prize with 18 votes, has been a yellow toss-up for weeks on this map. Now it shifts into the leaning GOP ranks. And two states we have had classified as leaning GOP now move into the solidly GOP column, both Indiana and Missouri turning dark red. If the vote was held today, would the changes be enough for Trump to win, or does Clinton stay on top? With 270 as the magic number, let's break down the overall map. The solidly GOP and leaning GOP states now total 192 electoral votes together. Those yellow toss-ups across the map, they account for another 63. Combining the solidly Democrat and leaning Democrat states in dark and light blue gets Clinton to 283 electoral college votes. So it is still an uphill battle for Trump to keep all the solid and leaning GOP states, pick up all the toss-ups, including prizes like Florida with 29 votes at stake, and pick off a state that's leaning Democrat, something like Pennsylvania with 20 votes up for grabs. Otherwise, it's a win for Clinton.
Shannon, thank you. So amid all this welter of national and state polling data, what's a voter to do? There's clearly Trump-mentum, you might say, but is it real movement or just the tightening we're accustomed to seeing at the end of a presidential race? Let's ask the pollster and political columnist, Kristen Soltis-Anderson. Kristen, nice to see you.
Thank you for having me, Britt.
What do you make of all this? Is this real? Is this the normal tightening? What is it?
I think part of this is that this is a race where people are going into their partisan camps and have had views that have been in place for a long time. That a year ago today, the Real Clear Politics average had this race as a 2-point race between Trump and Clinton, and here we are back at a 2-point race. That some of the fluctuation we see in polls may be about who's winning a news cycle, whether or not Donald Trump has good headlines or bad, whether Hillary Clinton has good headlines or bad. It's not that it's necessarily changing voters' attitudes about the candidates, but it's maybe affecting their enthusiasm for picking up the phone and taking a poll. Now the question is it affecting their actual enthusiasm for going out to vote? That's the big question that I think remains unanswered.
All right, so as Shannon described the map, if Hillary Clinton hangs on to what she appears now to have, she wins. But Donald Trump is getting closer and closer, and if he won all the old Republican states from 2012, which would include North Carolina, where she may be ahead, and he picked up the states that are toss-ups, he'd get to about, what, 255 and would still need something else. Does that sound right to you? Is the momentum that he seems to have, if it carried forward, would it get him there in your judgment?
It's still a very hard path for him, and it's going to mean that in states like North Carolina, where the polls now show things incredibly tight, he's going to need to have a turnout advantage that we're not necessarily seeing in early vote data. On the other hand, there are groups that Hillary Clinton really needs to turn out in order to put together the kind of turnout model that's good for her, and we've had reports, the New York Times earlier this week, saying things like African-American turnout in certain precincts has been lower in early voting, in part because it's now a little bit harder to early vote in certain areas in North Carolina. So can she make that up on Election Day, or does this mean that she really is facing more of an uphill battle than, say, a Barack Obama election turnout model might suggest?
A lot of people suggest to me, I hear about this all the time, that this year the polls may be wrong because there are shy voters out there that don't want to tell pollsters that they're for Donald Trump, and that there will be a wave of them that will come out on Election Day, perhaps voters that haven't voted very much, if at all, before, that could swing the race. Your thoughts?
There are two different ways to think about a shy Trump voter. The idea that there are voters who support Donald Trump, they're definitely going to vote for him, but they just don't feel like telling a pollster, and they say that they're undecided,
or they don't
say
pick
they're
up the
voting
phone.
for Clinton, or they don't pick up the phone. that may be something that's influenced a lot by what the headlines look like that day, which is why, say, the ABC Washington Post poll, one of the tracking polls that has consistently called the presidential race right, going back to 1992, they're the poll that showed Clinton winning by a 12-point margin about a week and a half ago. That gap then closed to show Trump with a 1-point lead earlier this week. I think they even say in the methodology notes of their polls that some of that's about enthusiasm, that when headlines are really bad for Donald Trump, that you do have those Trump folks deciding, maybe I don't want to pick up the phone and talk about it. But similarly, with the bad news that broke about the Comey letter late last week, you saw the same phenomenon happening with Clinton supporters, where all of a sudden Clinton supporters less willing to take the polls, showing this big shift toward Trump. So in the end, it may not just be shy Trump voters, there may also be shy Clinton voters, and it depends entirely on who's winning the news cycle.
Yeah, and I wonder if that effect carries over right on to Election Day.
Well, I think as we get closer to Election Day, people may just be tired of taking polls at all. Bear in mind there are lots, in these swing states especially, lots of get-out-the-vote calls being made, robocalls. The pollster's job gets pretty hard. What we know right now is that this is going to be a tight race. I wouldn't expect to see much change beyond it just being a very, very close race with a very slight Clinton advantage all the way through next Tuesday.
Kristen, thanks very much.
Thanks,
nice
Britt.
to see you.